Are you a franchisor, whether early or established, looking for tips and tricks and fresh new ideas on taking your franchise company to the next level? I'm Angela Cote, and I call myself a franchise growth catalyst. I use my experience having grown up in the world of franchising, spending many years on the franchisor side of the franchise relationship, lots of time out in the field supporting franchisees, and then 18 years myself as a multi-unit franchisee. I'm super passionate about creating transformational impact to help franchise companies grow. If you are looking for ideas, we talk about anything from franchisee recruitment, how to find the best franchisees that are going to be the top performers in your brand, to how to support them to really optimize their output. We are more than open to hearing ideas and questions and suggestions. So reach out to me at angela@angelacote.com. Alrighty, let's get started with the Franchise Growth Catalyst podcast. Hello, everybody. Angela Cote here. Here we go with another episode of the Franchise Growth Catalyst podcast, the podcast where franchisors can find unconventional yet practical advice on how to improve franchisee profitability, create exponential growth, and, you know it, make franchising fun. All right, let's get to today's topic. Have you noticed that how we view leadership is evolving? Soft skills like compassion and empathy are beginning to see the validation they deserve in the leadership scope. Being a leader is not about being authoritative and strong. As you maybe know from following me and listening to my podcasts, I follow a lot of influential thought leaders who study and they teach about leadership. And I'm convinced that leadership is more about the soft skills and the ability to influence and inspire others to greatness. So today I'm going to share with you the 6 key traits that I believe make a great leader. Before we jump into that, though, I just want to define who is a leader, because I know that often people tend to undermine themselves almost and think, well, I'm not a leader because I'm not the CEO or the boss or the founder of the company that I work for, or I don't do anything in terms of leadership. But really, anyone who has influence over their peers, even just their family or anyone around them, could technically be defined as a leader. And we all have opportunities to lead and to role model and to demonstrate behavior that influences others. And I would say that these days, it's a lot easier to be a leader, really, just by being on social media and sharing your voice and your expertise to the world. You're in a position to lead and influence. So this is probably for just about anybody, this podcast. I do want to zero in a little bit on the importance of being a good leader and understanding leadership when it comes to the franchise space and business in general. That, you know, leadership is always really important. Good leadership in a company enable for people to, in order for people to be able to thrive. But in franchising, it is especially important because it is such a dynamic relationship, such a unique dynamic relationship to be, franchisor with franchisees. And also franchisees have a role as leaders in their own businesses. So it really, this concept of leadership comes up a lot in franchising and business. So that is why I thought it would be a good idea to talk about it today. So here we go with the soft skills that I believe make a good leader. And I'm going to start with being an action taker. A good leader is someone who is a role model for taking action, willing to take risk, and knows that it's okay to fail even when it's scary, knows that they need to take that risk even when it's scary. And they realize that by doing things, we learn. At AC Inc., one of our core values is action equals growth. We believe that doing something is always better than doing nothing. And that's how we get over our need or desire or concern to be perfect. Perfection is the enemy of done, you may have heard. And perfectionism just slows us down. By taking action, we find out whether the action we took was the right action or not. but eventually it moves us forward. It helps us figure that out. And a good leader understands in taking that action, it does require courage. So not everybody is going to be comfortable taking those steps and being that leader in that position that needs to take that risk. So being an action taker is critical. The next soft skill, I will call it, is being purpose driven. What I've noticed about the best leaders is that they know their why. They know what they're trying to do or what they're working towards. They have goals and they know what's important to them, and they intentionally stay connected to their why for motivation. So when they start to feel discouraged, they catch it and realize, wait a minute, I'm doing this for this XX reason. And then they suddenly get that boost of energy and motivation to continue on even when it is a difficult time. And just understand that the why could be anything from saving the whales to creating economic opportunities to even just creating wealth for yourself so that you can afford a good education for your kids or be philanthropic, or even whether that's just taking nice vacations. Whatever it is, good leaders know their why and they are purpose driven. So point number 3 is being transparent. When we don't know why something is being done, human nature is to make up stories and assumptions. And when we do that, it can be very discouraging because we can tend to think the worst. I don't know how many times I've come up with stories about something that someone might be thinking or something they might be doing that I'm not aware of just because I don't know the actual truth. We tend to make up these stories. And so it really helps with alignment and building loyalty to the bigger picture when a leader is transparent with their team and the people around them and helps them understand the why. And an example of this in a business might be sharing certain key metrics. It might be sharing why you made certain decisions that you made. I know as a franchisee, there were times when I didn't know why a decision was being made. I found that really difficult to buy in, and you start to distrust. So that's the third one. So just to recap, we've got being an action taker, being purpose-driven, being transparent. The next one, probably you won't be too surprised to hear this, is being empathetic. A leader that is empathetic understands the importance of listening to their people around them and their team. And they try to really understand what that person is feeling and actually try to put themselves in the other person's shoes and respond with compassion. Now, I know this isn't super rocket science, and I'm hoping that I'm giving you enough to think about here. I usually like to really give strong action steps. So this is more of an opportunity to reflect on whether or not you do this. Do you listen to your team? Are you very aware of people's emotions? Now, this doesn't mean kissing up to people and giving them what they want. It means really understanding that sometimes people just need to feel heard. Sometimes we need to slow things down to create buy-in, rather than just telling people what to do, and really just treat people how we want to be treated. So being empathetic is the next point. After that, we've got being vulnerable. You probably knew this was coming. When people show that they are not superhuman, it makes them a lot more relatable. When you think about somebody that you look up to, if they're too superhuman, you probably think, well, I could never be like that. So it's not actually as motivating, or it doesn't really motivate you, or you don't feel as influenced. So I talk about this all the time when it comes to putting yourself out there. I always say, again, doing something is better than nothing. And I've been making videos often from my car for the last few years and putting those up on social media and LinkedIn. And I noticed early on that I got a great response. And I think I figured out why. It's because if I were to put up a video that was polished and had nice music, and I had filters, and there were no ums and no ahs in it, it would maybe seem inauthentic because you'd know that I practiced and hired a professional to get it right. I think a lot about the pictures of food in like a grocery store flyer or like on a menu or something like that, how good it looks. And you know for a fact that when you order that food or buy that food and cook it yourself, it is not going to look that polished. I even remember back in the day with my family business when I got to go on a couple of photo shoots with the food and watch how they did it. And they literally did not cook the food all the way. They put a little bit of shellac or shine on it to make it look shiny, and they'd fluff it up. Then you look at these and you're like, well, that looks good, but I know for a fact that when I order that food, it's not going to look like that. So it's that trust, right? Of it's actually what you see. So being vulnerable is about, actually what you see and being authentic. And it doesn't mean being weak. I know a lot of people and hate to pick on men, but often men hear that and they think that, men are, there's a stereotype that you're not meant to be weak and you don't show vulnerability. But by showing vulnerability, you're actually showing that you're quite strong. And examples of vulnerability include things like admitting that you don't know something, or even admitting that you're a little nervous, or admitting that you don't have something completely figured out. When we first experienced the lockdown and the crisis of COVID, the best leaders had to admit that they didn't have it figured out. But in order to instill confidence, despite that vulnerability and unknown, you can always assure people and yourself that you're going to do what it takes to figure it out. Being vulnerable yet resilient means like, I got this, right? So that's important to remember. And also just being authentic can be a form of vulnerability. So that is the next trait. And the last one I'm going to talk about here today is being introspective. Understanding the importance of self-assessing and being accountable to your actions. We all know that person that will never take the blame. How frustrating is that? Does that person ever really inspire you? My guess is no. People that won't take the blame and won't be introspective are never going to learn about themselves, right? Being introspective really enables you to grow. It offers you the opportunity to see areas you need to improve, and being a good leader is that you want then to work to improve those weaknesses or areas that you have opportunity to improve. As an influential leader that is introspective, you're really good at catching your mindset. Being introspective enables you to catch your mindset when you start to get negative. Leaders need to role model an optimistic mindset. When just think of complainers, complaining breeds more complaining. But optimism is magnetic and breeds more optimism. So we can influence others by being optimistic. And again, back to the initial crisis of COVID and the original lockdown, when there was a lot of negativity and concern and fear and doubt and anxiety, I remember being a little bit nervous about being optimistic because I thought like people might not be able to relate to that. And what I found was that people were looking for that ray of hope and that optimism. So it was a combination of being introspective and also showing some vulnerability and being realistic too. So by being introspective, we can really catch that mindset and catch ourselves and work towards being more optimistic and working on our growth. All right, so there you have it. I will just say those 6 things again, just to make sure you got it. Get out your pen and paper if you're taking notes. So the first one is being an action taker. Second one is being purpose-driven. Third one is being transparent. Fourth is being empathetic. 5, being vulnerable. And 6 is being introspective. We're going to wrap it up there. If you are needing some help with your leadership and you're struggling with being able to influence people, being able to get your team to do what you want them to do, please reach out. I would love to have a conversation with you. We can chat about some things you can do right off the bat to improve your ability to influence and be a great leader. It would mean so much to me if you would subscribe to this podcast. And if you're seeing this on social media, tag a friend that should listen to this or share this post so we can help spread the word and help people understand that leadership is not about being authoritative and strong-willed and not, taking no for an answer and just pushing through. It's about understanding people, and it's about empathy and being introspective and all these things we talked about. So there you have it. I'll wrap it up there. Now go be awesome.